Today, at least today's session, finishing off the day, we're going to be focusing on one of the most important parts of the admissions process, which is how to construct your school list and what factors you need to consider. And if everyone was just here at the last session with Jason Caldwell from Horace Mann, you just heard him at the very end give that wonderful gold nugget advice, which is be open-minded about the schools that you are looking into. Create a diverse school list. Now, by diverse, we mean a school that really showcases exactly your child's passions, but also what you're looking for, not just being very stuck in terms of one school. So that is our goal in terms of today. So as we move our way into the next slide, we're going to plan on discussing the following topics. So number one, what is the school ranking and does it matter? Why is school research important? What does the term best fit mean? This is something that you're constantly going to hear at a lot of different schools. We're trying to find the student that matches us in terms of best fit. So we're going to define that a little bit for you today. We're also going to talk about what information to look out for when you are doing school research. There are a lot of different factors, a lot of different components that come into this process, and we're going to define as many as we can for you all. And then lastly, we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into cases and situations and scenarios that we have actually dealt with that leads to various outcomes. All right. So once again, I've introduced myself in the opening session, and you've been with me in one of these sessions with Horace Mann today, but my name is Nicholas Edwards. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions for Middle and Upper School Consulting here at InAmerica Education. I'm not going to go into a comprehensive background into who I am, but the short version is I'm a graduate from Columbia University with a major in education. After my time in education, or at least in university, I began working as a kindergarten teacher, followed by an admission screener at a private school. And then from there, I worked in the world of admissions in a variety of roles. And that was an assistant director of admissions and an associate director of admissions. All that to say is that I am passionate about education and helping families find the schools of their dreams, and also what is the best fit for their family and child. So Victor, if you want to go on ahead and introduce yourself, that would be great.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nicholas. So again, my name is Victor Liu. I'm a consultant for admissions here at the K-12 division here at InAmerica Education. And I'm a personal benefitor from private school education. I've been to both the junior boarding and a boarding school for high school. And then I received my bachelor's degree in anthropology from Hamilton College in upstate New York. And then recently my master's degree in education from the University of Pennsylvania. Before I became a consultant here at InAmerica, I briefly worked at the different admission teams at the college level, as well as briefly in the educational technology and curriculum design industry. Yes, so let's get started. First, the first sort of challenge we're going to answer here is, does the school ranking matters at the private school level? So why, before we ask this question, we got to ask ourselves, why do we often focus on school ranking? I mean, there are certainly some benefits in school ranking because people are using it so much that a lot of people are, just solely focusing on school ranking in choosing schools. That's kind of true for especially for the college level, but it's also becoming a reality for the high school or a K-12 private school level as well. Because we do see some so-called rankings floating around on the internet or in different platforms and systems. So why do we often focus on school ranking? The first sort of challenge we have is definitely language barrier. For a lot of families, especially for our families from China who are more used to the traditional Chinese public school system, or maybe they're not super familiar with the U.S. private school system. Language barrier, information gap, contradicting informations are definitely all sort of difficulties that the families and students are going to face. So in that sense, a lot of people are more likely to turn into this ranking system because it's on the easier to use, easier to navigate to, okay, here are top 10 schools. They must be the top 10 best schools for my children. So let's apply to those 10. But in reality, there's no standardized evaluation system for US K-12 schools. Unlike colleges, for example, the US News College ranking system, they have a set of criteria they use, such as acceptance rate, academic rigor, and stuff like that, that they can both quantify and qualify in order to make that system more scientific or more subjective in one sense. But here for the K-12 school system, there isn't a standardized system. We don't really have a system like what they're using for college in order to standardize everything. And also from school to school, all the schools are just very different here for the private school sector. So it's very hard to also have one criteria to standardize every single school. And then on that note, there's a lack of comprehensive data compared to universities. Yes. Right. Let's go to the next slide.
Perfect. So in terms, sorry, Victor.
Go ahead. No,
okay. I was going to say, in terms of school research and why is it important? So the obvious answer is that without research, how will you be educated on what each school offers if you don't do research? Now, I'm going to say this as someone that worked in admissions. On the surface level, a lot of schools, they start to blend together. If you look at a website or just what you know about a school, each school has defining attributes. They have programs, values, and other factors, right? But when you look deeper, you're able to distinguish one school from the next. So research really allows your family to figure out what is the most important aspect to your family. If your child is good at sports, you might be looking for a school with a really strong sports culture. If you're looking for a big school where he's going to have a lot of friends or maybe just a lot more space, then maybe you might want to look into a 500-acre campus plus. Maybe your kid is very interested in music. You might want to find a state-of-the-art piano hall. So before beginning that school research, it's important to think about what's important to your family and to have that initial conversation. It's good to ask yourself these questions. What are you looking for? Because really only through discussion can you figure out what are you searching for. And that's when making a list can be useful. So now that you've had a family discussion, there's a few needs to know. So every school is more than just a name, a reputation, a test, a ranking, or even just a college matriculation. We often look at those identifiers first, but that's not how you define a school. Even the top ranking school in the United States will not categorize themselves by just like their test results. And so therefore, we don't want you to define yourself as that as well. So the main takeaway is that when you're doing school research, you want to focus on a school that will connect with you. If a school is top ranking, but does not have the activities that you do not even need to thrive, then that's not going to be a good match. So always picture yourself and your child in the community and reflect on what is the most important aspect. All right. So now that we talked about all the basic information for a school, it's also good to know about a few of these aspects as well. And you'll see the first thing when making your school list, decide if you're interested in day, boarding, or both. If you're an international family, and let's say, depending on citizenship, that your family is staying in the area that you are, you can probably only look at boarding schools. Also, maybe if you're a domestic family and you know that your child is very independent, very responsible, or maybe they're really looking for a brand new environment that's very different than what they've been dealing with, a boarding school might be the answer. But let's say your family, maybe you're domestic or international, you plan on moving to an area, you want to relocate, maybe you look into a day school. I'm always going to say there's more day schools than boarding schools just on sheer volume and number. So just think about that. But maybe from a commuting distance, you know that your child wants to stay close to home. Maybe some of their extracurricular activities are close to home as well. Then maybe you might want to entertain day. Now, maybe you have a very flexible child, and maybe your family is very flexible. And so all that means is that maybe you can entertain day schools, boarding, both of them. And that gives you a little bit more options. Now, obviously, another very important part about making your school list is deciding on location. So, obviously, you're looking into United States schools, but the real question is, are you interested in the South, the West, the Northeast, the Northwest, the Midwest, you name it? There's so many different areas. So, there are private schools all over, and you need to think about where are you comfortable sending your child. If you know that your child gets homesick, and maybe you live in New York, you might not send them all the way to California, which is a nice 6 hours away. Maybe you want to send them maybe somewhere in Massachusetts a little bit closer, or maybe even just keep them in New York. So, location is important because the bigger your geographical range, the more school opportunities you'll have. If you say that, hey, oh, I'm interested in my child looking all over, that means that you have access to more private day and boarding schools. But if you say, hey, I want a smaller location, maybe I just want the Northeast, that's only going to, limit you to the schools, for example, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania. So the bigger your school list, the more opportunities, the smaller your school list, the narrower your choices. And then the last one before I turn this over to Victor is just single sex or co-ed. Do you want your student, do you want your child to be in a more traditional school setting, which is co-ed? All genders, everyone is in the school. Or maybe you know that maybe your child interacts better with maybe just a certain gender. Then maybe you might entertain single sex schools. It's good to sort of know what are the differences between the schools. How does that maybe limit or enhance the program? And what does your child want and what will they benefit from?
Right. So our next factor to consider is religious affiliation. Does your family want religious affiliation in your child's education? Does your family want your child to have a integrated course load in religion and religious studies in their education? Is a factor for a lot of families in choosing a school. For example, one family might not want that aspect in their educational factor, but maybe a so-called top-ranked school is a religious affiliated school, then that school might not necessarily, check all the boxes for the family. And then our next one is the size of the school. Like Nicholas just mentioned, the size of school also matters a lot. For example, a school with 1,000 students is going to look very different from a school with just 300 students. Actually, today, for the two presentations we had, Horace Mann is a relatively larger school, but for the earlier presentation, Westminster only had about 400 students, and it's a relatively smaller school. Those two schools are obviously gonna give you very different feelings and a very different experience for your child. Remember, your child is gonna be in this school for at least 3 to 4 years, depending on the entry point. So the size of the school really matters. If your child really wants to, know everybody on campus, then there's no way for your child to possibly, get the names of 1,000 students. Then a smaller school is probably the way to go. If, for example, if the family wants a tighter community, wants a class size of 10 or so students. But on the other hand, if you want more programs, perhaps more opportunities for larger, curriculums, then larger schools might be the way to go. Next one, competitiveness of the school and how it relates to your child. For example, that might look like a school's curriculum's competitiveness. For example, if your child is really into math and wants to take advantage of the math curriculum, and if the school's math curriculum only goes up to BC calculus, and your child is already finished with AP curriculum and wants to learn something more beyond that, then that's really going to limit your opportunity from that school. Um, and then our next one, programs and specialized experience. I am a personal benefiter from this, so-called specialized programs. Because some high schools or middle schools, they might have unique programs that's only to that school. For example, when I was looking at high school, I was super into biology and environmental studies. So I chose a school that had a zoo on campus. So that was really special about that school, and I really enjoyed my times there, working as a volunteer in the zoo. Right.
All right. So, in terms of just more information to look out for, so Victor and I, we went through the general ones that you should be paying attention to before you start making your decisions. But now that you're doing the research, this is all the information for you to look out for. Now, you'll see that there are a lot of bullet points, and what I'm going to do is go through each of them very briefly, just so you have an idea about why each of these are the most important. So every school has a mission. They have an about page, they have a values page. They're excited to share about their philosophies and what makes their school unique. So while families tend to bypass this, I'm going to give you a secret. Do not. This is important because as a family, you should always be looking for alignment. We just spoke about Horace Mann and how they emphasize service. If service is important to your family, you should be looking for a school that highlights service learning, citizenship, and community as values. Therefore, values such as integrity, community, ownership, all those should be advertised and should mean something to your family. So, by reading each school's values, you have a better sense of how your family may align with the community. Obviously, school community is the next one, and that just means what type of environment has really been constructed. Is everyone really close? Are there friendships made? Are you able to have accessibility and availability of teachers? Or maybe it's just a little bit more of a larger community and people sort of do their own thing. This is very important for you to know when you're looking into a school. School facts, also known as fast facts or quick facts. These are sections that every single school has, typically in their admissions page. Now, these sections are aimed at providing your family with sort of like a snapshot of the environment. How can you describe the school in just a few numbers? And so these are normally numbered information. So, for example, how many students does a school have? How many acres does the school take up? What is the average student to teacher ratio? How many clubs? How many sports? Those sorts of numbers so that they can make it very comprehensive for your family. Now, school facts is not everything you should be looking at. This is just maybe the first thing, just so that you can get a general idea about the school. If you're looking for a big school because you feel like, for example, your child can thrive a little bit better with more students, you might want to pay attention to the number of acres the school has, as well as the number of students. If you see that, okay, maybe it's a little bit less, then that might be a factor right there that tells you this might not be the best school for my child. So, in general, school facts provide your family with just more information academically, as well as teaching methods. The curriculum and the classes being taught is very important. From an academic and a teaching method style, you want to know, okay, are the classes taught in a lecture base? Are they taught seminar style with a Socratic method or even Harkness table, which is very discussion based? Then you want to think about how does your child respond to the current academic teaching method? If your child is in school and you know that they just like memorizing information, then you might be looking for a school that's a little bit more lecture based. But if you know that your kid likes to talk, or maybe they just like to be in a very conversational dynamic, you might want to put them in a school that focuses on seminar style and Harkness style learning. Same thing in terms of academic curriculum. You always want to think about what classes are being offered. What are the specialties academically that the school has? Is the school an advanced placement school, AP? Are they IB, International Baccalaureate? Are they just honors classes? Are they numbered classes like 4,000 level, 400 level? You want to think about what the class, or sorry, what the school offers, because that's really going to tell you what is the rigor that your child will be able to be interacting with. So you want to definitely pay attention to all of these factors in your research. So curriculum plays a big role because it really deals with what can your child really listen to and interact with on a daily basis. Remember, academics is a huge part of school, so you definitely want to pay attention to this. Now, one of the best ways of learning all this information in just one place is the admissions section. So you've seen today and yesterday the level of information, all the presentations that these admissions officers provide. Obviously, that's their job. They're interacting with families constantly to teach them more about their school. And in doing so, they have so many informational events that are scheduled so that families can learn more about what the school offers. So the good news is that there's always an event that will fit your family. There are virtual tours, there are in-person tours, there's open houses, there's phone calls. So moral of the story is definitely attend one of these events, even though that they're optional. It's good that you have an ability to make connections or even find out more about the school and hearing from the admissions officers themselves. And then lastly, clubs, activities, everything dealing with extracurricular activities and offerings. This shows alignment. This shows the talents, the passions, and the interests of your student and making sure that the school that you're interested in has these. To give you an example, if your child is very much interested in swimming, but you're looking into schools that don't have a swimming pool, what's going to happen? Your child may be pretty upset that they might have to find a new sport or they might have to look outside of campus in order to fulfill their swimming needs. So just also know your child and what they like and make sure that the school will offer it. Once again, we're always looking for alignment.
All right. So on the opposite side, what could happen if with a mismatched school? Academically, there might be a lack of challenge if the academic rigor mismatches with your child needs. For going back to that example with the math curriculum, if if your child really wants to go above and beyond and learn something like linear algebra or multivariable calculus, and the school doesn't offer those programs, then there's definitely a lack of challenge, and there's nothing else for the child to learn. And in on that sense, your child might be unmotivated to pursue more in the field and dive deeper into the field of study, and that might lead to for the students to disengage or dislike the school and demonstrate negative behaviors even eventually. And then but on the other hand, if the school is overwhelmingly difficult, that also can lead to very similar results and questions. For example, if the students are not really into, for example, the social sciences, and the social science is an emphasis for the school, and everybody needs to write a book or write intensive capstone project and stuff like that. That might, cause some mental or psychological problem for the students, as the school course load is just too much for the student to handle in that subject matter. And then, if the student spends too much time on the academics, remember, school is not just about academics. For the private school system is a more comprehensive system. It engages, the community, the curriculum, and all the aspects. If the academics are way too challenging by themselves, the student might not even have the time or the commitment to other activities, extracurriculum, such as community service, sports, other hobbies they want to pursue. And that might also impact the overall GPA, which is very important in college matriculation and admissions. In terms of academics, if the school doesn't is not able to provide enough opportunity outside of the classroom, then the students might not be able to take advantage of all the time they have here with the school, such as for example, going back to the example Nicholas mentioned, if the school doesn't offer swimming, a varsity level swimming team, then the student might have to change to something else or look elsewhere outside of campus. Then that's a mismatch between the school and the students. And students might feel as if they can't find their place within their community. Remember, school is not just about academics. It's a community, and the students should be a part of that larger community in order to participate and take advantage at the fullest level. And the values or cultures might come into conflict if the school is a mismatch for the student. For example, religious affiliation or some philosophy that the school thrives on in terms of academics. Right.
Perfect. So we spoke a lot about how to do school research and the factors that come into it, but I think everyone always wants to see, how does this look in real time? Like, what happens when you put this into practice? So this is one case scenario that I'm very familiar with. You can see here, this is what happens when school research maybe is not at the best. So we have a student that only wants the top schools. The student and family wants the top 10 boarding schools because they feel like they have a great chance to get into one or two of them. Now, what happens in this situation? Well, let me tell you, first and foremost, you limit your options. If you're interested in the top 10 boarding schools, not to deter you at all, but just know that there are a lot of applications, a lot of applicants who are also competing for similar spots. And so let's sort of think about this from a number game. Let's say there are 1,000 applications coming into the school, but their ninth grade class, they're only trying to accept about 40 students. You do the math, but that is going to be a very small percentage in terms of how your child will actually be able to get in, despite how strong they might be. Competition is very strong, and especially if you're looking into top 10 boarding schools, top 20, I'll tell you that the competition is fierce. So that's something to think about. Now, once again, in this scenario, the family and student, they just said, we're not looking into anything else. Here's the top 10. And so all that means is that now they are very limited in how they can move forward. In terms of these schools, in terms of the top 10 or just top 20 in general, it's more than just doing well on a standardized test. They're looking at the complete application. We're looking at well-roundedness. So even if that student has perfect scores on the SSAT, even if their transcripts are the best, you can see the last point here is athletics and arts are considered as well. Maybe the student didn't do as much and show involvement in their school. It's more than just grades. And so, what ends up happening here? Because this student and this family did not decide to look into more schools, or they weren't open minded, now they are limited. And what happens is this student ends up most likely on a wait list or even possibly rejected. Now, once again, that's not because of the caliber of that student. I believe that the student is strong. But what actually happens is you're dealing with a larger world out there of admissions. And so, therefore, the school is shaping their class. It's more than just academics, it's also extracurricular activities, which means that this is going to be a little bit more limited in this situation.
All right. On the other hand, we now have an open-minded family who's willing to, spend the time and do intensive research in order to, they came in with the idea that they wanted to and want to listen to our guidance and expertise and look into schools and visit them as we suggested. In this case, the family has a well-balanced list with competitive schools, like, for example, some of the top 20, top 10, but they also, add into schools and look into that follows the students' interest and when making selections. And they're less concerned about the school's name, reputation, big name, ranking. They're more looking at the schools, that offers what the student really needs, their academic or their community or their athletics. And then at the end of the day, the student gets two offers, and one was their original top choice, and the other one was, some of the schools they newly looked into, and after their visit and admission experience, the family decides to attend to their new top choice instead, that they think after doing intensive research that fits the students a little bit better. As we, for example, as I talked with Westminster from Sarah from Westminster School, we asked them about the best school for the student, and Sarah repeated over and over that finding the school of in quotation best fit is very important for the student. So in this case, the family is finding the best fit for the students, and this school might not be the biggest name or the top ranked school, but the school is this is a choice that check all the boxes of what the student needs, and is categorized as the best fit school for the students. All right, and due to time restriction, this will be our presentation here. We're not gonna do a Q&A here live, but if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our assistant to follow our WeChat account and let us know our send us email or phone number, and we'll be more than happy to stay connected. Yes, is there anything else you would like to add, Nicholas?
Besides this wonderful presentation, just want to say, of course, like this wraps up everything for today. And then we're going to be back in action on Tuesday, I believe, and that's going to be September 24th, where we'll start at 9 o'clock and we'll begin with Kent School. We'll move on to Woodside Priory, and then we'll have another webinar by some of our consultants. So we're excited for another week in terms of our school fair, and we're excited to see you all then.
All right. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us today.
All righty. Bye-bye, everyone.